Hi, everyone. I am Lorianne. I am that gal from Milton, Ontario, Canada, and I am with.
I am that guy. I am Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas. Welcome to our Lift Your Story podcast.
Today, we're pleased to have Gord Strain. He is a knife sharpener, which is really interesting. That's a very interesting industry, and also a podcaster. So, we're going to learn more about Gord today. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you guys very much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity.
We're happy to have you. So, can you tell us kind of how you got involved in podcasting?
Well, it's actually a funny thing. My co-host, Eric, he started doing his own sort of podcast on his own one day, and he was just sort of bored doing it. And then he calls me up and he's like, hey, do you want to like guest on this? Because I literally have like 5 minutes worth of material and I don't know what to do. So I'm like, sure. So we just sort of kind of did that once in a while. And that's when I was living in BC at the time. So this was almost 4 years ago now. And then once I moved back to Ontario, we just sort of kept it up. And from there, we just sort of built, and we went from, I still remember when we were actually just talking about this the other day when we were at like 7 listeners. We're like, yeah, we're almost at 10. This is great. And we sort of hit these milestones. We're now sitting at over 10,000 listeners in 15 countries.
Wow.
It's pretty trippy. It's weird to even consider this fact, but yeah, it's just a lot of fun. So it's more of it was all of Eric's sort of thing. And then once I joined, my whole role was just, I'd call in to talk, and that's it. I had no other role. I offered nothing for the show. Now I'm a co-writer. So now I'm just we're direct equal partners on the whole thing. And it's a lot of fun.
That's neat. What is it called, your podcast?
Oh, yeah, that would come in handy. It is called Eric and Gord, What If We're Right?
Oh, okay.
So we're on season 3 now. We got like 280 something episodes, I think. So yeah, it's fascinating because when we first started, Eric was actually homeless when we first started. So the first year, he was literally on the streets of downtown Vancouver, and I was podcasting from the Milton Cemetery.
Oh my goodness.
I'd be sitting around the cemetery, walking around with my cell phone and my headphones on, yammering away because, who's going to complain about the noise, right?
Well, that's kind of fun. And just for the listeners, Gord and I actually live in the same city. It's unusual that we have somebody here on our podcast that, I can walk to his place if I wanted to.
I still can't get over that fact. That's just so wild.
So you also have a knife sharpening company, which is unusual. How did you get into that?
Well, when I was a kid, I had a fascination with knives. It started with I was walking to a buddy's place when I was like, man, it must have been 10 or 11 years old, and I found a knife stuck in a guy's fence, and it was raining, and the knife was rusting, so I stole it, and I spent the better part of 2 summers polishing it and re-edging it all by hand from what I learned in Boy Scouts. Mm-hmm. And I always had the fascination. And then over time, no mother wants to see their boy handling these types of weird knives and stuff. So I ended up getting rid of the knives over as a kid. And then when I lived out in BC, I got a job managing a high-end knife store called House of Knives. I'll just give them a promotion because they're a great company. And I became one of their top sharpeners in their industry. I took a store that was doing about 100 to 150 knives a month to just under 3,000 knives a month. And wow. I did that in about 10 months.
Wow.
So yeah, I fell in love with it. Once I moved back to Milton, I had no interest in it, like in the sense, like I kind of wanted to, but I didn't know how to do it. I didn't really have a whole lot of equipment with it. And I ended up getting my mom was getting work done to her house, and while I was over here, there's a guy that drives around in the truck with the bell, ding, 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 come out, bring your knives out. So it's like, the ice cream truck for adults and knives. He came by, and I started talking to him, and he did not like me at all because every question I had for him, he couldn't answer. And so he's like, you should be doing this instead of me. I'm like, give me the keys. So that night I started my Gord's Little Shop at Sharpening business page on Facebook, and the business just kind of took off from there, like literally took off from there. So it's been a wild ride. And for me, this is knife sharpening is like, that's like my yoga. That's my meditation.
Mhm.
It's so calming for me. I can be in the worst of moods, put a knife in my hand, my sharpener, I'm just happy away. I'm just giggling and smiling all night.
Well, it's funny because I'm probably older than you are, but when I was a young kid, I was in Boy Scouts as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you learned about knives, the tote and chip, the whole thing,
Yep.
right? And
That's right.
but then when I was a kid, you would go to family gatherings, and the grandpas and the uncles, they would be whittling. They'd be out there. They eat an apple. They'd cut off a piece and hold them. Here you go, have this. And it just
Yeah.
that when you say knives, those are the things that always come back to me. Is being a kid around the grandparents, uncles. They all have everybody had a pocket knife. I mean,
That's right.
Everybody had a pocket knife, and they were always talking about how much better theirs was than the one the other one had, who had the sharpest knife and the best way to do it, and
So
all
true.
that. So I mean, it's just like kind of like being a kid all over again. When you were saying something about how it calms you when you're sharpening a knife and stuff. I mean, I can relate to that. I mean, I totally get it. I really do.
It's a funny thing. The industry around it is funny. Like, around the people that I know, like my friends and family and everything else, like I know more about knives than they could ever possibly think to know. Now, part of my knife friends, like my knife groups, I'm like the most limited knowledge out of the group. Like, there's guys that take the knowledge of knives to such a ridiculous level. It's insane. Like these guys know all the chemical markups of everything that's involved in all these things. They know what, you read a code on the knife. Well, okay, I can read the codes on knives, but like it just gets to these funny things. And for me, it's not about like, I'll never be the type of guy that's going to like, I need to have this $5,000 knife just so I can have it. If I can't use it, I don't want it. So like, I'm all about, if it has a purpose and I can use it, I want it. And it's been fascinating, and I love it. I've got a really nice little collection of kitchen knives, and I got some really nice little pocket knives that I'm in love with, and it's great. I love playing with them.
Well, it's funny because I've always had a knife since I was a kid. Always have a. It's kind of like, do you have a knife? Am I wearing pants? If I've got pants on, I've got a knife. But my kids.
I just took mine out of my pocket.
my kids always gave me a hard time about, oh, Dad, why do you always have a knife? But then we're like Christmas something, you need to open something. Dad, can I see your knife? It's
Right.
always, Dad, you got your knife?
See, and that's the thing. My girlfriend right now, hi Jess. She when we first started dating and everything else, when I told her, like, I'm a knife guy, of course, most women, especially when you first start dating, they hear you're a knife guy, yeah, get the hell away from me, sort of thing. They get a little off put by that. But every time we would go out, it wouldn't matter where we were, I would always find a reason to find a use for my knife. Whether it's just take a staple out of something, cut a piece of paper, open up a bag of milk, whatever it might be. There's always a reason to do it. And I ended up leaving her one of my Japanese knives at her house. I'm like, here, take my Santoku. It's a nice Shun one. I really like it. It's my first usable Japanese knife I ever bought. And so I left at her place. And the next day she messaged me. She's like, oh my God, I'm cutting a raw potato, and it's gliding through like you're just putting a hot knife through butter. It just glides right through. I'm like, yeah, that's it. Now you get it. Now you know.
Well, it's funny. I want to know here, because you said that you were in Boy Scouts. I was in Girl Guides. I still have my Girl Guide pocket knife. I have probably about 7 of them. My son bought me a couple for my birthdays because he knows I love knives. So this is perfect.
Oh, this is amazing.
Who has their original one?
I don't.
You don't. I still do.
Mine got out of what what had happened was I had a really nice collection. I had my original Boy Scout pocket knife was in it. I had an old little optional knife. I had a Swiss Army knife. But my pride of my collection was I had the Rambo Bowie knife from Rambo First Blood Part 3. And it was actually the box itself was hand signed by Sylvester Stallone himself.
Wow.
I picked it up. I found it years ago, and I was stoked. I'd only had it for a really short period of time, but I always wanted it. My mom found my knife collection, and she found an illegal knife in that collection, and she got rid of every one of them. Scooped them all up and threw them out. Now, here's where this gets funny. I was like 17, 18 at the time when those were gone. And I was telling the story to a customer of mine when I was out in BC at the knife store. And we just sort of got talking. And he's like, did you ever see if you could like find it again? I'm like, I never really thought about it. I went up on Craigslist and I found it. I found the Rambo Bowie knife. I'm like, this is fantastic. So I messaged the guy. I'm like, hey, do you still have it? He goes, nah, I literally just sold it this afternoon. I'm like, oh, that's so heartbreaking. So I sort of gave him a quick backstory. He goes, you're in Milton, Ontario? He goes, when you had that? I'm like, yeah. He says, where'd your mom throw it out? I said, the Milton garbage dump. Did she give it to you? He goes, yeah, I had that whole bag. So he's actually had the knife this entire time and just happened to sell it right away.
Oh.
So I literally just missed getting it back by a matter of hours. Heartbreaking.
Can I ask how much he sold it for?
What did he tell me? He sold it for $300, which is actually a huge thing, but it's all because of the signature on the box.
Yeah.
But that's why he sold it. But yeah, you can usually pick one up used for anywhere from 100 or for 80 to $150. But yeah, I'm heartbroken. I really wanted that knife back.
You were talking about the different knives. I know my youngest son, when he was in Cub Scouts, going into the boys, he wanted a knife, but he kept telling me, he says, Dad, I want one of those Army Swiss knives. I want an Army Swiss knife. That's what he got. Army Swiss knife.
Can I get the Army Swiss one? Well,
so, yeah,
Swiss Army, but okay.
So you have a truck then? You are actually that Bell person, or
Nope.
do you have a location?
It's actually, I literally just do it out of my garage.
Oh.
How do you? Okay.
Yeah. And I literally basically just sort of discussed with my girlfriend as of late. I'm actually going to be moving to St. Catharines in the next month. So I'll be basing my business out of both. I'll still be coming back and doing sharpening. So it's just a matter of getting that sort of balance, because I do 5, 6 restaurants here in town, plus a whole whack of customers. So I'm going to be jumping back between the two towns to get everything done. But it's just so much fun. So worth it for me.
When I visited Canada about 3 or 4 years ago, I spent some time in St. Catharines.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Some great restaurants out there, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
And I know my food. That's my next big thing is I want to work on, because every time I go to St. Catharines, my girlfriend, puts posts out and she's like, no, hey, my boyfriend sharpens knives. And I just got in with a chef that she's friends with, and I did all hers, and now she's recommended. Now almost every weekend I go up, she's got new customers for me lined up, which is pretty wild. But like I said, for me, it's great because I've upgraded. I have one of the top sharpening systems in the industry. It's called the Tormek T8. I love my Tormek system. It's what I used when I was at House of Knives. It was not cheap to invest in, but so worth it, because my timeline for getting work done has just been dramatically cut. And I mean, it was taking me on average 25 to 40 minutes per knife before I got the system. Now that I have it, it's around about 2 minutes.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a dramatic change in timeline for what I can do and how much work I can get done. So now I do tools. Basically, I'll put an edge on anything except for a lawnmower blade. I'll do everything else. I do tweezers.
Are your primaries restaurants though, or
no? Homes are my primary still.
Okay.
Like I said, I have some restaurants. My outlying goal is there's a company called Nella. Anybody in the industry, restaurant industry knows they are the #1 restaurant supply company in, I think in North America, but I know Canada for sure. My goal is to eliminate them from Milton altogether. I want them out, and I want all the business.
Wow.
So that's my end goal.
So,
and they actually already know who I am, which is the best thing. So
yeah.
one of my restaurants actually made mention to that, because they said, hey, who's this Gord guy? Has he contacted you yet? And they're like, yeah, he has, but I have a contract with you guys. He goes, yeah, well, so does everybody else, but they seem to be going with Gord. So they're afraid, and I like it.
So so going back to your podcast,
Mm.
you know, so kind of what I think you said you had kind of a wide range of topics you talk about.
Yep. Everything and anything.
So what are the most popular topics for your podcast that you've had, you think?
Well, there's actually 4. Um, when we had our end of our season 2 episode, we did the goal was to do an 8-hour session, one big 8-hour long podcast.
Wow.
And we hit, I think we finished off with, I think we did 5 hours by the end of it. But it was, the whole entire thing was all about religion. So we had an active minister, we had a former priest from the States, and we had and I'm still trying to wrap my head around this one. We had I want to make sure I get all this right. A female minister who is, oh my God, bisexual, trans, and somehow was able to still get done through the church itself, and not like the online church. Like, she actually got ministered through the church itself and everything else. So we had these very diverse group of people to call in to discuss all these amazing, these, you know, hardcore topics. And the initial point of the whole thing was to basically convince Eric of why God exists, basically. And that was the basic sort of point of it. I am more just fascinated. Religion for me is a fascinating concept. I love the idea of it. I think it's just a wild idea. I don't believe in organized religion as it is, but regardless of that, like, it was just fascinating to hear the different stories and people's beliefs and why one got out of it while another got into it. It was a fascinating thing. We had some really good responses over that. That was fun. The first time we started talking about Trump was a huge boost for us, which was really weird. Because it's not like we were saying anything good or bad. We were just, like I said, we were just fact checking, you know, how much the media would lie about what he does. And we were just like, we never understood the concept. Why do you have to lie about the guy who makes everything, like everything you need against him? He already utters it every day. So we never understood the concept of why would you have to lie, considering he is his own worst enemy for all that anyway. So we picked up a ton of listeners in the States, especially in California. We just went off the charts in California for a stretch with them.
No surprise there.
Well, yeah, it was just so weird, and we just didn't see it coming. And the sort of favorite one seems to be when we talk about music and movies on those two. Like, we'll just go off topic. Like, one time we had a set list. We're going to discuss this. I got like 15 different news stories I've got to talk about. He's got like 10 different ones. We talked one news story and spent the rest of the next hour and a half talking about movies. And people seem to really like it. So it's a hit, and we have no idea what truly works in that sense. It's just, it just seems to be the more genuine the conversation, the more people seem to really respond to it. So,
well, I mean, it's something the average person's interested in.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's watched a movie. Everybody listens to music. You know, everybody watches TV. You know, like everybody has that easy thing in common, you know, and I'm a movie nut. I've got, God, I don't even know, 300 DVDs and over 3 terabytes of movies on one of my hard drives. I've got 5 terabytes of music. I'm a music nut, and so is Eric. So when we get on the discussion of music, it's usually pretty intense because we know so many random stupid facts that people don't really know about. It's so much fun for me. Like we do that, and we're afterwards, we're like, oh, that was so much fun, you know.
Well, you know, you were talking about religion a while ago, and you made a comment about organized religion. You know, here in the States, for the last probably maybe 15 years or maybe even longer, there's been a push to do away with organized religion. It's
Mm.
they don't want Methodist, Baptist, Presbyterian, Catholic. They want all this just 60s, we're all one type stuff, and so there's a lot of pushback here when you talk about religion.
And especially in Texas. I mean, like, Texas is known for having a church on every corner, I've been through there once.
And they're mostly Baptist.
Yeah, exactly. When it comes to that, it's a weird thing. Like, I like the idea of, eliminating the need for a title, like I'm Methodist, Anglican, Protestant, whatever it might be. The basic fundamentals are always the same on every one of the religions anyways. I believe in a higher power. They help basically give me a moral guide on how to live and don't hurt people. It's a pretty simple, basic concept. So I just feel like, and like I said, I agree to an extent with, putting it all under one sort of title of just saying, I believe in a God. Simple. It's very simple in that sense, but it's the devout hardcores that make that impossible, because it's with anything, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's a job, if it's religion, if it's a relationship. It's the devout hardcores that are the ones that push for, this is the one that I follow and you're not taking that away from me. Which, and I get, if somebody tells me I'm not allowed to sharpen knives at a 17-degree angle anymore, I'm going to be pissed, I don't care if the industry standard is 20. That's not how I do it, So, I get it. I just,
religion and politics are so similar, really, if you think about it.
So true. It is true.
And religion is really political, although people don't like to say that, but it is. I mean, faith is one thing, but religion's another.
Yeah, and that's just it. Like, I used to identify as an atheist. I don't anymore. I don't know where I am on the spectrum. I do think there's a form of a higher power. I just don't think he's around anymore, or it is around anymore, whatever it might be. I just don't think it's there anymore. I think it's a creation and he moved on. That's my sort of way of looking at it. But I mean, it's funny. For years struggling with that, what do I actually believe? What is actually out there? The weirdest thing of all things was I ended up, sounds so stupid when I say this, but I actually identified most with, there's a TV show called Supernatural. And I really identified with how they presented God in that show, because throughout the entire series, for the most part, God's not there. You meet Satan, the devil's there. He's part of the actual every day-to-day show, but God himself isn't, until they finally introduce him. And for the record, his name is Chuck, and he sits in a bar all day and just sits down and just reads. Amazing. I love Chuck. Chuck is awesome. But it was the way it was presented. It was just that, he created all this stuff and he did all these things, and now he's just left everybody to their own devices, and he's not a part of any of it. He doesn't do like miracles, and doesn't do that. It's all, everything that happens just happens because it's happening. And he just sits in the bar and chills and relaxes and tries to write his memoir, sort of thing. And I'm thinking, that sounds right. I don't know why. And it sounds so dumb to say that out loud, but it's just a conclusion I've seemed to come up with, and it seems to work.
Well, it's funny because, like, all three of us here, I'm probably not going to convince you to change your beliefs, religion or politics. And you're not, and I can guarantee you're not going to change mine.
No. And it shouldn't be about that, though. And that's the best thing.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I think that's the biggest issue. Everybody has their beliefs. What you believe for you, if it works for you, great.
Yeah. Right? As long as I'm not killing people in the name of, I mean, really, who,
Yeah.
what damage does it do? And that's my whole sort of thing. Like, when I was younger, I was really against religion when I was a kid. And I was in a mall with my girlfriend at the time, and she was in doing some clothes shopping. I'm just sort of people watching. This random kid comes up to me and he says, "Hey, can I borrow you for like, 10 minutes?" I'm like, "See that girl shopping in that store?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, "You got my attention till she comes out." "Oh, great. Well, there's a group of us getting together." And he starts talking about this big get together coming up this weekend. I see his flyer. He's got this flyer in his hand, and written on the top is just a big word Jesus across. I said, "Let me ask you a question." He says, "Yeah." I said, "Is this a religious thing?" He goes, "Well, it's like an introduction to, if you're not really into religion, this is perfect. It's a good way to discuss, Christianity and what it really represents and what it is." So I let him do his spiel. So he did his whole spiel. I'm like, "That's cool." I said, "Can I ask you a couple of questions?" He goes, "Sure." So I threw a couple of questions at him. And by the time I finished sort of talking to him, he looked at his flyers and he looked at me with just this despondent look. And he's just like, "I can't believe I've been wasting my life with this." And he threw them in the garbage and walked away with his head down. I'm just like, that was not my intention. Oh, I felt like I felt so torn about that, because I'm thinking, I changed one, but I felt really bad. I'm thinking, here's this guy who's his whole life, he's believed this. And a 5-minute conversation, I just tore his world apart, sort of thing. And I felt terrible. So from that moment on, I changed my approach towards it, and I looked at it from a much different light. And yeah, and it's gotten me to.
Do you know where that young man is today?
No, I don't. I'm scared to find out. I really am. I really don't. I do not want to find out that he's like some pimp running a thing. I just don't want to know about it. I really don't. It scares me.
Oh, that's good.
That's pretty profound there.
It was. I mean, the one interesting thing that came out of that, though, is it really got me to sort of more focus on like I love talking to people that are like devout. Like when you get a really devout person that wholeheartedly believes in everything that they're saying, those are my favorite people to talk to about it, because you can have a direct conversation where you can throw in certain things like, well, what about this? And how does that intertwine with your belief? And you throw these little facts at them, and to hear them sort of just talk about how it is that they get through it and how they see it from their perspective, it's utterly fascinating. And I love it. I love having those conversations. They're so enjoyable to me. And because now, like I said, I don't approach it from a point of I'm going to change your mind, as much as here's what I struggle with it. What's your thoughts on that? So to hear that sort of back and forth, it's just, it's so much fun. I really get a lot of enjoyment out of it. And a lot of people can't stand it when they're around me when we do it, but it's just so much fun. It really is.
I think you'd be great to have at a dinner party.
As you can tell, I'm a talker. So.
Yeah, but it's interesting to have conversations with people that you don't know, because we've seen this on the podcast. We'll see somebody, we'll bring them on, and there's so much more to people than what that little thing you see that got you interested.
Absolutely.
You think you got this little snapshot here. Oh, that'd be a great guy or a great gal. They come on, you're going, oh my gosh, can you believe they were this, they were that? It just, everybody really has a lot to offer. If you can.
Truly. And it's getting that conversation out, which is the best. And that's, for me, my whole life has been based on that. Like, no, I'm a born storyteller. I got that trait from my father, who was a natural storyteller. So overtly outgoing. Like I'll do it. There's no situation you could put me in that I'm not going to get people sort of laughing or at the least feel uncomfortable. But like I just love meeting people, and I love talking to people. I love hearing stories. I love hearing fascinating little facts about things. Like, like when I go to a restaurant, I will always try to get involved in a conversation with my server, just so I can get one piece of information out of them that I could be like, there, I just learned something today. Fantastic. And I live for that. I live my whole life is based off of learning at least one new thing a day. And if I don't get that one bit of information where I just sat at home and just did nothing all day, then I make a point to do something really drastic the next day.
See, the difference in you and I is, in order for me to learn something new, I've got to forget something to make room. See, I'm maxed out. See, so I've got to forget something to learn something new.
You've hit that limit.
Yeah, I'm peaked out.
That's it. It's funny. For many years, I was actually the same way, and because I was a very heavy drinker for most of my youth and um, uh, mid-20s. Very, very heavy drinker. Did quite a bit of drugs during that time and everything else. But it wasn't until when I moved to BC and I finally sort of cleared up myself and I gave up all drugs. I cut down drinking to almost only social drinking. I've been fascinated about how much information I can retain nowadays. This is freaky. Like I'm used to hearing something goes in one ear, out the other, and I don't really retain much. Now it's just a whirlwind of stuff in my head. It's fascinating. It's fun.
Yeah, it's kind of like my wife tells me. She says, if I need useless information, I'm always coming to you because you know more useless information than anybody I know.
But I always find it's that useless information which comes in most handy, because I did this to my girlfriend, and just after we first really started dating, and I said, look, I'm going to give you this random fact, and I just threw this most random thing I could think of at the time, and I can't even off the top of my head think of what it was. I'm like, here's something, and she's like, the hell am I going to do with that? I said, give it a week. Give you 1 week. And sure enough, 4 days later, she messaged me. She says, you're never going to believe what? She goes, that fact you just gave me? She goes, I just shared it with somebody. There's always something, and it doesn't matter how dumb and pointless the fact seems at the time. Somebody within a week is going to say something. You're going to be like, I know something about that. And there it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So how can our listeners get a hold of you?
Well, there are multiple ways. So to get through the podcast, now I do need to pre-warn. So our podcast, we started off doing as a very family friendly. Eric was very upfront about that. He says, I'm a natural swearer. So even keeping this clean for this has been a bit of a struggle for me, but I'm keeping it clean. And so that was what the podcast was sort of based on. We would talk about whatever, but I wasn't allowed to swear. So the bulk of the conversation was Eric talking, me just going, yep. That was about it. Cause I knew if I let myself just really talk, things would come out and it wouldn't be G friendly anymore. So then we did our first one where Eric's like, okay, look, Gord's been bugging about this. So we're going to do our first swearing episode where we can swear. And ironically enough, I only swore twice in 2.5 hours of that episode, but the conversation was days away from what it was. Like I was more comfortable because I knew now I could speak openly. From that point on, we are now an explicit podcast. We swear a lot, and even our email address is offensive. And so I'm a little weary about spitting that one out. There's no swearing in it, but it's just funny as hell to me. But you can find us, like I said, we're on every platform. We have our own website at Eric and Gord. Oh my God, I don't know the name of the website off the top of my head right now. Because it keeps changing the domain. Actually, it's under review. So we do have a website, but basically you can just type in Eric and Gord, Whatever Right. We're on every platform. You can get a hold of us that way very easily. Messages through Spotify or anything else. The knife sharpening, literally you can just Google me now, which is pretty awesome. I have my own Google thing now, which is pretty neat. But you can Gord Strain at gmail.com. Very simple to email me. Business page on Facebook, Gord's Little Shop of Sharpening. Easiest way to get a hold of me, really. I really want to say the name of the website, the email. It's just so cool. So that's our thing.
Now I'm all curious.
Well,
not fair.
Would you be open to us doing like a joint podcast together?
Oh, absolutely. We are always actually, and if you mentioned that one, as it stands, we are looking to attempt to break the world record for the longest continuous audio podcast in the world. The current record is 52 hours. We're going to go for 60.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I have no idea how we're going to pull this off necessarily, but we're basically going to be doing this kind of almost in shifts. Don't know how we're going to pull this off yet, but that's our goal. So we are looking to book as many people as humanly possible throughout that 60-hour stretch. So that'll be coming up. As it stands right now, it looks like I think we'll be starting it on the 18th of December. Almost a month tomorrow. Oh, good
Wow.
Lord, it's going to be in a month. Oh, that's freaky.
Run into Christmas.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we'll be podcasting right up until almost Christmas. Not sure how my girlfriend's going to feel about that, because that's going to be really interesting. Just going to be like literally holed up in her basement for 5 or 3 days straight, 4 days straight. So
Now, question about that, and I know that we're running out of time, but I just have to ask this one, is are you going to have a specific topic, or is it just people are just going to be coming in and just chatting about whatever they feel like talking about?
You can literally talk about you want to talk about your day, you want to talk about your past, you want to talk about your dreams to the future, you want to talk about how you hate your father. I don't care. Whatever you want to talk about, it's there. It's an open platform. Between the two of us, we've got a tremendous amount of life experience. Between the two of us, we've pretty much experienced almost everything you could throw at somebody in the sense. So there's very little that we can't relate to. We've done it all from the good to the bad. So it's just a flat out open discussion. Absolutely anything you want to talk about. Don't care about what it is. You want to call us up to say some dude cut you off? Bring it on.
And then one final quick question. Are people going to be calling in on this, or
Yes.
how do you schedule it? Because are you going to be free?
That's funny, because that'll be up to Eric.
Okay, good. All right. I'm sitting there going, if you got 60 hours, but there's 5 of us at a certain time.
Well, it's going to be, like I said, like logistically on that part, there's no denying it. That's 100% on Eric. That part of it, I really don't contribute a whole lot to, because I don't even understand. I really don't. I have no idea how Eric does what Eric does. He sets up, he set up our web page. He set up my business page for my knife sharpening. He does all these things. He comes up with these cartoon ideas. He's writing comic strips for us, and he's writing a movie. He's actually in the process of shooting a movie for us right now, a little animated movie about us, sort of. So he's an incredibly busy dude that does a lot, and
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible. So Eric, thanks, buddy.
There you
Love
go.
it, man.
Nice to meet you through Gord, Eric.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're up at the top of the hour, so to speak. I really want to say thank you hugely, Gord. Maybe we'll actually meet for a coffee someday face to face.
Absolutely. And once this whole lift comes off of this COVID lift, yeah, we'll be definitely up for that.
Yeah,
Excellent.
it was really enjoyable having you on. I really thoroughly enjoyed meeting.
Well, thank you very much. I've loved my time. I don't do very many of these. Mainly it's because I just don't even think about it. Like I said, I saw yours and I thought, I can talk about that. I have something about that. So that's why I sent it in, because I thought this would be great. And I didn't even know you were local, Lorianne, when I set that up. I had no idea. I just assumed I was talking to somebody else from the States, like I usually do.
Oh, do you know where did you see it? Because I know I posted all over the place, but
it was on the only podcast talk thing on Facebook.
okay.
There's that group on Facebook. I don't even know the name of the group. I just see it comes up once in a while. But for podcast listeners, whatever, I just happen to see that on. And I'm like, I can do that.
Excellent.
So, yeah. So I'm thank you very much for putting that up there. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was great. It was great having
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate this,
All right.
guys. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Thank
Take
you very
care.
much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.